All right, as I'm sure you've heard by now, Cooper Kupp, star receiver for the Rams, is on the trade block. I know he has injury concerns, but I still think this guy is one of the best receivers in the NFL. Like, he, to me, is a difference maker to where he can truly be the difference between a team missing the playoffs, making the playoffs, losing the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. He can have a big impact as long as he's healthy. So with that said, I think there are 3 teams in the NFL that should be extremely desperate. Do whatever it takes to get Kupp on their team, because if they do, their seasons are changed for the good. I'll give them to you in order here. Number 1, team that should be most desperate in order to land Cooper Kupp, the San Francisco 49ers. I know you think their roster is stacked, and it is, but they're also banged up right now. Just lost Brandon Ayuk for the season with an ACL injury. Christian McCaffrey is slated to come back soon, and hopefully he does. But questions about his longevity, if he does come back, will he be able to stay healthy? It's a question that right now is yet to be answered. You have Juwan Jennings, you have Deebo Samuel out missing time as well for different injuries and illnesses. The 49ers at their skill positions, but specifically receiver, are banged up and thin right now. They need Cooper Kupp. They need him desperately. Their window is right now. Like, they can't afford to wait another season. They can't afford to be patient. Their Super Bowl window is right now. And this will probably come as a shock to you, but the 49ers do have the most cap space in all the NFL. So they have plenty of room to bring on his contract, no problemo. So if you're the 49ers, you need Kupp. I think in order to win the Super Bowl this year, you need Cooper Kupp on your squad. Now, you probably think to yourself, well, Ryan, sure, the 49ers need him, but why the hell would the Rams trade him in division? Here's why the Rams should do it. What if the 49ers make the best offer? What if they are so aggressive, they have by far the best trade offer on the table? How can the Rams say no to that? Because when you look at the timelines, they don't match up. The Rams right now in trading Kupp are signaling fire sale, right? 31-year-old receiver, they're moving off him. We'll get to Stafford here in a second. But they're not competing this year, next year. Like, they're not going to compete for the next 2 or 3 years. They're going to rebuild, try to get draft picks, and build a new team here. The 49ers, their window's right now. They're going for it right now. So by the time the Rams are going to try to compete again, Kupp will be 33, 34, maybe on a different team by then. So the timelines in terms of competition don't match up to where the Rams are not going to go trade Kupp and then try to beat the 49ers to win the division. It's not happening. But then the second thing is, again, what if the 49ers are so aggressive, they have the best offer on the table? Doesn't Les Snead owe it to the team to get the best offer possible, even if it comes from a division rival? Like, right now, the reports are from The Athletic that the Rams are seeking a second-round pick for Kupp. What if the 49ers say, here's a second and a third? What if they say, here's a second this year, a second next year? What if they get crazy and say, you know what? A lot of injuries to receiver. Our windows right now, Brock Purdy's struggling with, let's get him a reliable option on the outside. What if they say, here's a first-round pick? How can the Rams say no? They can't, they won't, they shouldn't. So if you're the 49ers, I think you need to be aggressive here and in trying to do everything you can to acquire Cooper Kupp. I think if you're the Rams, even though it's your rival in division, if the 49ers have the best offer on the table, you need to take it. 49ers, number 1 team on my list here that needs to trade for Cooper Kupp. Team number 2, let's say the 49ers don't make it happen, not as aggressive as I think they should be. Team number 2 that should go get him, I think that you would truly talk about going over the top to be the team to beat in the NFL, it's the Detroit Lions. If they get Cooper Kupp, they are, I think, by far the team to beat, the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. Because really one of their only weaknesses on this roster right now is wide receiver depth. Amon-Ra St. Brown, tremendous receiver. But you look beyond him, and the depth is a little scary here. Jameson Williams is your number 2. This week it was announced he is serving a 2-game suspension for PEDs. Now his second suspension in the NFL. He can't be trusted. I don't feel great about him being my number 2 guy when he can't do things right off the field to get himself on the field. So behind JMO, Tim Patrick, who is a guy who's unfortunately missed the last 2 years with injuries. So we'll see about his durability. So far, so good, but that's not a guy you can, I think, truly trust in a Super Bowl kind of year. that he can reliably produce for you week in and week out. And then Khalif Raymond. Does that sound like 2, 3, and 4 of a Super Bowl winning team? Doesn't to me. So if you get Cooper Kupp, pair him with Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? You go back to the Rams days for Jared Goff. You already have continuity there. How are the Lions not the team to beat? I think they are. So if I'm Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, you can spend your draft capital in 2 ways, right? Get a receiver or get a defensive end to try to replace Aiden Hutchinson. I think the star DNs that people are talking about, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, even Hassan Reddick, we just saw him return with the Jets. He's not going to get traded. I don't think any of those guys are available or realistic. So I don't think you're going to be able to truly patch up your defensive line. So why not load up on the offense? Why not try to really give yourself the best chance to win by just trying to outscore the other team? I think that's the best way to do it. If you're the Lions, absolutely have to be in these Cooper Kupp trade talks. If you do it, you are the team to beat in the NFL. And finally here, third team that should be very aggressive and should do everything they can to land Kupp, the Buccaneers. All right, this is an obvious one. We all saw the game Monday night. And by the way, Todd Bowles does not deserve blame for what happened to Chris Godwin. It's football. It sucked. It was a 10-point game. Let's relax on that, okay? Not everyone or not everything that happens there has to be a fall guy or someone to blame. Sometimes stuff just happens. It stinks. Anyway, but now that the Chris Godwin injury happened, he's out for the year. The Mike Evans hamstring injury also happened earlier in the game. And I know that initially they're talking about 3 weeks to a month with him for a hamstring injury. Older guy, hamstring injuries are always very fickle. I'm going to say he's probably out for a little bit longer than that. So your top 2 guys are going to be out for extended amounts of time, if not the entire season. The depth behind them, very scary, very inexperienced. I still think with the talent the Bucs have on this team, they're the favorite over the Falcons to win the South. So you still have a real window here, if you're the Bucs, to go win, make the playoffs, get a home playoff game. Go get Cooper Kupp, pair with Baker Mayfield, and really go now capitalize on this window and win the NFC South for the 4th time in a row. Bucs have to be aggressive here. So 49ers, Lions, Bucs. 3 teams that have to be uber aggressive in landing Cooper Kupp. If they get him, their seasons change for the better. If they don't, it's going to be a lot tougher to get where they want to go this season. Really fast here. 2 teams I want to bring up that I did not include here that should be aggressive to go get them, that people have been talking about. Number 1, the Steelers. Why I don't think the Steelers should be that aggressive in getting him is just because their season is going to come down to quarterback play. Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields. I know Russ played great on Sunday night. I still don't trust him. I really don't. Fields, same thing. I don't think he's much better. And I just don't think Kupp, with his skill set and how these quarterbacks play, especially kind of airing the ball deep a lot, that's the strength of both of their games. I just don't think he makes that big of a difference on the offense. And also part of that, I don't really trust Russ to keep up what he's been doing. And I don't trust Fields to be a consistent week in, week out producer on this offense. So I just don't think he makes that much of a difference because I just don't think either quarterback is very good and consistent going forward here for the Steelers. And the other one, right, probably the most popular one you've heard, the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's why it's not going to happen. They have $3.6 million in cap space. That's it. It's one of the lowest in all the NFL. They have no space. Even though the Rams said they are open to eating some cap space to facilitate a trade, he is not. They don't have enough room, period. Period, stop. So the Chiefs don't have enough room to make it happen. It's not realistic here. One thing before we get out of here, I want to mention this. The Cooper Kupp trade, or being open to the trade, I should say, by the Rams, signifies a rebuild, which means this upcoming offseason, not only will Cooper Kupp not be on the roster, neither will Matthew Stafford. The Rams are trading. Right? They are waving the white flag here. They have the second youngest team in all the NFL. They don't have that many veterans, but the veterans they do have that are aging are going to be off the roster. So I 100% fully expect Matthew Stafford to be traded this offseason and be on another team here. And I still think, kind of like Kupp, I still think Stafford can play. I think if he goes to the right situation, that team can win a Super Bowl just like him going to LA did immediately. So there are 3 teams I think if Stafford gets traded to, they become instant Super Bowl contenders. I'll give them to you here really quickly. Number 1, Seattle Seahawks. I know we're going back in division. I can't help myself. But look at this. Right? Look at this offense right now Seattle has. Imagine Stafford throwing to DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba. We'll see about Tyler Lockett. Kenneth Walker handing the ball off to him, and having Ryan Grubb calling the plays. That's going to be a top 5 offense easily. They're a top 10 offense right now with Geno Smith, and I'm not a big Geno guy at all. Imagine you have Stafford in this offense with this collection of skill talent. Oh my. Who's stopping him? Who is stopping him? The answer? Nobody. Nobody. This would be one of the most prolific, high-flying offenses in all the NFL. And defensively, I think they're only going to get better with Mike McDonald now taking over the helm. So I think that defense in what would be next year, year 2, under the McDonald system would be a lot better, a lot more stout. So an explosive offense, good defense. Seahawks absolutely would be Super Bowl contenders immediately if they trade for Stafford. And again, just like the 49ers, where we talked about trading in division, why the Rams should do it is because if the Seahawks give you the best offer on the table, you can't say no. Stafford is 36 years old. He'll be 37 next year. His window is very short. His window of high play is very short and very small. So if you trade Stafford even in division, you can expect the Seahawks for 2, maybe 3 years to be highly competitive and Super Bowl caliber. The Rams are not going to be competing for a Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years. They're going to be rebuilding. They're destined for a top 10 pick. They're going to draft a quarterback, I think. So as you're rebuilding, and you can get the best offer back and the most draft capital back, even if it's in division, I would feel comfortable doing it. Seahawks absolutely would be a Super Bowl contender immediately with Matthew Stafford on their team. That's a team that absolutely has to do it here. Number 2, the Dolphins. Imagine Stafford being able to let it fly with Tyreek Hill on one side and Jalen Waddle on the other. That would be incredible. I know they just paid Tua. I get it. So you'd have to figure out a trade there to move off Tua. I think there are enough desperate teams in the league that would trade for Tua, even with the concussion problems. But that's also part of why if you're the Dolphins, you can't. Look, I don't want to rehash this because we talked about it a lot in the offseason. They shouldn't have paid him. That was a massive mistake. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field, let alone play well in big games. So the Dolphins, I think, screw themselves here by paying Tua. But if you're able to get out of it, if you can trade Tua to a quarterback-hungry team, a desperate team that wants competent, solid quarterback play, you can get Tua off your team, bring Stafford in, and have him paired with right now what is a really good defense in Miami and the best wide receiver duo, one of the best wide receiver duos in all of the league, in Waddle and Hill with a guy that I think is still a smart offensive mind in Mike McDaniel. That would cook. That'd be so much fun. Plus, nice weather for Stafford. He'll enjoy the warm air. Not have to worry about playing in the cold too often. Dolphins, immediate Super Bowl contenders if they can land Matthew Stafford. And finally here, third team that becomes instant Super Bowl contenders with Stafford on their squad, Steelers. Just talked about why they shouldn't trade for Cooper Kupp. Why? Don't trust the quarterback. Well, what if you get a trustworthy quarterback? What if now all of a sudden you land someone who knows what the hell they're doing? Because the Steelers now for years, have had a championship level defense that has been going to waste. Because the offense can't figure out their head from their ass. They don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, Russ now, Justin Fields, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career, he had the noodle arm. This offense has been tough to watch for 5, 6, 7 years. It's been brutal. And the defense has been elite during that time. Defense is going nowhere. TJ Watt is the most unblockable, I would argue maybe the best player, period, in the NFL right now. Bring Stafford to that team. Now, I will say you have to improve the offensive line because he's not that mobile, so you got to have some better protection than right now what the Steelers have. But you saw it on Sunday night. The threat of Russ and the competency when it comes to throwing the ball. Not only did he complete a few deep passes and have a good game, his presence alone opened up more running lanes than Najee Harris has seen in a long time. And all of a sudden the run game got going because the box wasn't filled with 8, 9, 10 guys because no one respected the pass game for Pittsburgh. You have now still a high-level quarterback under center, opens up the run game for Harris. George Pickens is a little mercurial, but has a lot of talent. I think Stafford would feed him the ball early and often. I think that Steelers team with that defense and now competent quarterback play would immediately become a Super Bowl contender. So there are three teams right there: Seahawks, Dolphins, Steelers, that are, I think, realistic trade options for Stafford that would overnight become Super Bowl contenders here in 2025 that currently right now are nowhere close to that. One team I want to mention here because I put this out on Twitter and I got a few tweets from some snarky folks. Well, Ryan, what about the Vikings? They're 5-1. You're telling me that they wouldn't be a Super Bowl contender with Matthew Stafford? They absolutely would. But one word I just said, realistic. The Vikings would be number one on this list if they could realistically trade for Stafford. They're not trading for him. They have Sam Darnold there now. They're not trading for him in season. The Rams are not moving Stafford and Kupp. They'll get the most return because they'll have the most competition for Stafford's services in the offseason. That's when you'll get the best return possible. So they're not trading him now at the deadline with a limited market. They're going to trade him in the offseason. And I don't see the Vikings trading for Stafford even for a year or two when they just drafted J.J. McCarthy. I don't see it happening. They've committed to McCarthy. They're in a McCarthy. I think they're going to ride it out with him next year. So I don't think the Vikings are realistic at all when it comes to acquiring Stafford. If they were, they'd be number one on the list. But I don't think it's realistic at all. So those are three teams that should be uber aggressive to trade for Cooper Kupp. And in doing so, the fire sale's on in LA. Who should trade for Matthew Stafford? Seahawks, Dolphins, Steelers. Is there a team I left out? There a team I'm overhyping, underrating, overlooking? Let me know in the comment section as well. Which team did I leave out? Which team would be a Super Bowl contender in your mind with Matthew Stafford under center?